This is the Authority Company Podcast, conversations with leaders who are designing our future. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and Peter D. Schwartz joins the show to talk about leadership growth through a long career coaching CEOs and a personal walk on the Camino de Santiago. As an award-winning CEO, coach, author, and longtime Vistage Master Chair, he's worked with hundreds of chief executives and brings a grounded view of leadership as an ongoing practice of inner work and outward action. His new book, The Leadership Journeyman, Insights from a CEO Coach on Lifelong Growth, Meaning, and Purpose from the Camino de Santiago, challenges high performers to trade perfection and control for meaning, purpose, and steady growth over time. Peter Schwartz, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm pretty good today, Joe. How are you?
I'm excellent and super excited to talk to you because my family is originally from Spain and grew in the Galicia area, like northern Spain, like on the border of Portugal, which is not too far away from the Camino de Santiago. And I want to get into the journey and how it was and what you learned from it. But tell me, why? What was it about that? And obviously, it's been romanticized in books and films. What drew you to the Camino?
Actually, I started to get serious about it when I turned 60. It took me 2 years to be able to arrange the time off. It was 45 days unplugged out of the world. But it was really to answer an essential question. And the question was, I've accomplished everything I want to do in my life professionally, now what? And about the time, I was thinking about writing the now book that I've finally written. And at the time, I viewed it as yet just another accomplishment, and that was the wrong reason. So I walked the Camino, and at the time, when I finished the Camino, I decided I wasn't going to write the book. Then 10 years later, it was the right time and the right reason. And then the Camino itself, what an extraordinary adventure that turned into the metaphor by which I write about.
Excellent. And for folks, just give folks like the thumbnail about the Camino. I mean, I'm sure they're familiar, heard it. It's very, I always like to say, it's sort of like the safer Everest. Like it's something that a lot of people have on their bucket list to try and do. It's not as dangerous as trying to go Kilimanjaro or Everest or something like that. So just tell folks about it and maybe like when you learned about it.
Well, I'll tell you about it first. It's a centuries old pilgrimage, Christian pilgrimage. So if you know the Christian tradition, one of the 12 apostles are believed to be buried in the crypt in Santiago de Compostela on the coast of Spain. And for centuries, Catholics, Christians would pilgrimage there through all parts of Europe to pay homage to the St. James. That's its origins. Through the years, it has evolved. People still do it for religious reasons, or just to get into shape or whatever. But most of the time, it's a combination of that and a spiritual reason, which is why I chose to do it.
Nice. And in the book, you open with the idea of the mirror moment on the Camino. What? First of all, mirror moment. What's that mean?
So, since I had done it for a spiritual reason, you hope for a Camino revelation. That's that moment where, however it occurs to you, and it makes the whole thing worth it. Mine occurred at the end of a particularly hard day where I was exhausted, in pain from my knees, and I had taken a shower, and I was walking towards my pilgrim band, and I caught my face in the mirror, and what I saw shocked me. It was an old, tired, worn-out man's face, just beaten up. And I realized that was my moment. And it was my wabi-sabi moment. And wabi-sabi is a Japanese aesthetic that finds the beauty in the impermanence, the imperfection, and the incompleteness of a thing. And I was reminded of the Japanese aesthetic as I'm walking across northern Spain, across ancient Roman roads, and visiting these amazing medieval towns in various forms of disrepair because of the weather and time. And it was just beautiful. And I realized as I walked past the mirror, that was my moment. And I said to myself, get back in front of that mirror, stand and look at the face and the person behind the face that is not perfect, not permanent, and not complete. And that was a pretty interesting moment.
Yeah. And when you share that, because you obviously have coached hundreds of leaders throughout your career, and obviously you've shared that with a lot of them, what reaction do you mostly get out of leaders when you talk about having that sort of epiphany, for lack of a better word, of where you are in life?
So that is such an interesting question because for the longest time I was reluctant to share it.
Okay.
I didn't want to be that kind of vulnerable. I didn't know how it would be received. So I took a chance one day and it was embraced. And every time I tell this story, every CEO I've ever worked with gets it.
Hmm.
And it's almost permission giving from them because they're all striving for the same thing in the early days of leadership. They got to be perfect, they got to be permanent in it, and they want to feel complete in it. And that just doesn't happen.
Hmm. And you talk about the fact that, you were chasing that for the longest time of, being perfect, being permanent. You use the word complete.
That was my success strategy. In order to be safe, secure, and worthwhile in this world, I need to be this thing as seen in the eyes of others. And because it worked in the early days, and that's the wonderful thing about a success strategy, is it works in the beginning. Nothing broken here. But because it worked, I wanted to perfect it. I wanted to be permanent in it, and I wanted to feel complete in it. And at the moment I got promoted into leadership, that construct of myself met up against a more complex reality, and it wasn't working anymore. I had to evolve my very point of view around leadership. And you could see that leadership the way that I talk about it is very much like a computer's operating system. We all take for granted that the laptop that I'm talking to you from, you have to upgrade the operating system once a year so it can do more complex things. Same thing with leadership. You have to upgrade your internal operating system, your mind, to be able to handle the increasing complexity of leadership. And that's what the Camino was all about as a metaphor for leadership development.
Hmm. And I guess the word complete is sort of it's problematic because I think if you throw that word around, it means like you're done, right? You're done learning, you're done evolving. Um, and maybe it happens to a lot of people where they think they've reached a certain pinnacle and they're like, okay, I'm good, but then you see the ones that are really successful and they never see themselves as complete. And in a way, the idea of completion sounds perfect in paper, but in reality, it's probably not the way you want to live.
Well, in the reality, if you take that strategy and are really wedded into growing a company, it won't work. You will have it will just introduce all kinds of friction into the organization. You have to be willing to grow and outgrow outdated beliefs and models. That's the only way.
And you're right about letting go of mastery in favor of being a journeyman. And it's funny because I think this is the one thing that holds most people back from starting anything. I often, when I did a short film a few years ago, Peter, and it would cost a lot of money. It was a real pain, but it was an amazing experience, and no one could take that away from me, right? And so I'll have younger people be like, "Do you have any tips for making a film? Doing?" I'm like, "Do it. Just do it. Don't wait till you have the perfect camera. Don't wait till you have the perfect cast. Don't wait till you have the perfect script. Just do it." And people, for whatever reason, use that as sort of a facade to prevent them from doing anything. And because they think they have to master something before they do it. What,
No.
tell me
Uh,
about that idea of dropping that and being the journeyman who goes on the journey and tries things.
well, mastery is a trap. I mean, I think that all successful leaders or anybody in business gets to stages of mastery where you can plateau for a bit and rest and, enjoy the moment. But there's always the next level. And if you see yourself as just a person that is committed to growth and then being willing to find the joy in the rigors of growth, you can let go of mastery. It's about the 45 days it took me to get to Santiago, not Santiago.
Hmm. And just looking back at those 45 days, what looking back, I'm sure you look at it fondly, but early on, were there some insecurities that popped up? Were your things to worry about? Because the one thing when I was reading about it, I always thought about like many years ago, I was into running, right, Peter? And I would do these 5Ks and I eventually ran a marathon, did it twice, scratch that off the bucket list. I'm done. I'm not doing that again. But I remember every time I would do one of these 5Ks or 10Ks, the first mile, Peter, no joke, I'm saying to myself, why am I doing this? This is no fun because it takes a while for you to get up and going, right? So tell me about those early days of Camino and where you're like, the hell am I doing here?
Oh, there was a lot of self-talk around what the hell I was doing here in the early days. So to prep for this thing, I would walk every Saturday and Sunday with a backpack on, for 20 miles. And so I thought I was ready for this Camino. I get to there, and I was ready for exactly 2 days because that's what I trained for. Day 4, it kicked my butt. I mean, I was really crushed. I was exhausted and discouraged, and for about another 10 or 12 days after that, every single day, I was thinking, "A, I'm not up for this thing. I'm not doing it right. I hate it." Um, I just was wondering what the heck I got it myself into. And that was important, by the way, that I went through that kind of self-talk phase, because at one point I started to realize, this isn't helping you at all. You chose this journey. It's a gift to you. Embrace it. Um, but the early days were tough. And by the way, there was never really an easy day. They were always rigorous.
And for context, because we fall into this comparison trap where Peter, you probably saw someone online or maybe someone you knew who did it in X number of days. Were you beholden to that, where you kind of went in with like, I'm going to do this in blank days because so-and-so did that?
Well, I had a guidebook, and friends with that had done this. Say, here, read this guidebook and take it with you. So I had this mental picture that I'm supposed to chart this many miles every single day to be successful as a walking pilgrim, right? And I had arthritic knees at the time. I just got one replaced, and so there was no way I was going to walk this thing at somebody's pace with healthy knees. And then every single day, young Italians in groups, I mean, because I did it late summer and all these kids on holiday were just sprinting by me. And that's not fun to watch.
No.
Uh, so it was interesting to find myself be captured by an expectation that wasn't my Camino. And when I finally let go of that and said, I walk this at your pace, you'll get to the destination in time. Make it your Camino. It's the miles you walk, not someone else's miles. That was very liberating for me.
I remember when I did my first New York City marathon, I was like, I want to crack 4 because I felt like, I was in my 30s. I was in pretty good shape. That was what people were doing. And I got 4:11 and I'm like, I'm going to try again. Next year I did 4:10. So I never got to crack 4 and I was like, I'm done with it. What was your goal, time, date, whatever, before you set forth, or did you not have one?
Well, I allowed myself 45 days end to end.
Okay.
And so it took me actually, I think it was 38 days to get to Santiago. The rest of the time, I just had some time off that I could then go to Finisterre, which is on the coast. So I knew that I needed to kind of finish the in between. And I just developed a cadence of walking, a rhythm. And to me, this is a nice leadership metaphor. It's this rhythm of daily progress with purpose and intent, and growing and learning along the way, so that halfway through, I could feel myself getting stronger. The first mountain I went up, it exhausted me. I was stopping every 100 yards, gasping for air. The final mountain I went up it without taking a break. To feel yourself gain mastery. And the knee pain was there constantly, but my relationship to the pain changed. So it was this evolving story and conversation I was having with the Camino itself that was transforming me a little bit through the walking. Uh, I hope I'm explaining it, because it's really kind of subtle and profound in the way that the Camino grows you.
Yeah, I want to pull on that thread, Peter, because tell me what the physical pain does to unlock sort of emotional insight. Like, what did you learn about yourself working through bad knees, going up mountains that you were not used to doing? Like, what did that do to you emotionally or change you emotionally?
Well, I mean, I could fixate on the pain, or I could just embrace it, that I had chosen to do this. I'll walk at a pace that I can manage it. And by the way, it wasn't 6 or 7 straight hours of it. It was the downhill days that were particularly tough. But that was a part of and it was manageable. I could get to the destination, each day's destination, before it got dark. So I just accepted it as part of the deal.
Hmm. So tying the walk into what you do, in the book you talk about emphasizing traveling light. What belief do you think leaders carry that weighs them down more than anything in like the skill gap chart? Like, is there something that weighs down leaders more than anything that you've seen working with them, that you're like, if you can just get if you can just get off that, you will be in such a better place.
Well, it's a good question, and it depends on each leader. Each leader, I believe, including myself, carries something into the day. It could be, yes, it could be a relationship that just needs to end. It could be a product line that you just need that got you started as a company, but it's not working more. You need to let go of it. It's just weight and backpack. Those are outer game weights that just need to be set down. Let your ego aside. More times than that, though, it's the inner game. It's some belief that you're carrying with you that adds weight to the backpack. So it's a combination of inner and outer game stuff.
And when you ask leaders questions, I'm generally, I'm sure they're kind of open ended instead of yes or no. What is the one question you ask that genuinely like produces like moments of silence? Like it literally takes the leader like a good, like, you know how leaders always have the answer right away. Like what's a question or two that you've asked them along their sort of like journey to become better leaders that stops them in their tracks?
So there's a great line that I use a lot. It's the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. So a lot of times I'll just, when we get into something that's really complex, I slow the conversation down and I say, what is the main thing? What matters most right here for you right now? And many times, my clients haven't given it that much attention, and they need to get clear about the main thing. And once you're clear about the main thing, then everything else is not necessarily easy, but it's clearer.
And for most of them, what is the main thing? Like, is there something that comes up a lot with a lot of these leaders?
Look, I like to start every relationship starting out with, well, what's the main thing? And it can mean it's like a dozen main things.
Yeah.
But why did you start the business? What matters most to you? What does 5 years look like with respect to the main thing for you? Is it growth? Is it profit? Whatever it is, it's your decision. But are you clear about what your main thing is?
Hmm.
I think the leaders, once they have that kind of clarity, then they can get to the strategy or the tactics of it all.
Hmm. And on the subject, you write about purpose. This is a great line, by the way. Purpose is something you do, not something you find. And I think for a lot of people, it is one of those. The word purpose is something that you don't do it. It's something that just comes to you. It's something that comes across your desk. Or like, oh, now this is my purpose. Um, what daily action best reveals a leader's real purpose?
So I think purpose is, without getting religious, I think it's a spiritual. It's kind of the source of it all. It's where your energy comes from. So what is it that animates you? What is it that kind of lights you up? We're back to the main thing again. So purpose is about what you're doing on a daily basis, on a grand scale or a small scale, that at the end of the day feels purposeful to you, feels like you spent the time in a purposeful, meaningful way. We're not talking big P. It doesn't mean the cure of cancer necessarily. It just means I had a good day doing the thing that matters to me, despite how difficult it is, and I feel good about it. Purpose is a verb, not a noun.
Mm. That's great. For the leaders that you know you work with, why do they come to you? Like, what is the generally? Let's give a plug to what you do, really. But like, what is the one thing that they're missing? Because I think they probably have a million of reasons why they come to you. But what's the most common reason leaders want to improve? Why they seek someone out like you? Like, what are they lacking in life, for lack of a better word?
Well, I'm working with really talented, intelligent people. So it's not lacking talent. It's not lacking intelligence. It's not lacking drive. They bring tons of that to the conversation. What they lack is clarity. What they lack is, if I could put it in a formula, performance equals potential minus interference. So I'm working with high performance people that want to achieve big things. So they bring that to the conversation. I quickly make an assessment with respect to potential. Do you have what you need to get it? Is it reasonable to go for what we're going for here? And then my job is to identify and help them identify what's interfering so we can get it talked about and removed. To me, that to me is my job um, is to pay attention to those three things. And then I think and I'm not everybody, but I believe that most CEOs, it's very lonely at the top. A lot of them see me as a participatory companion, this guy that walks side by side with them, men and women, as a participatory companion. I've walked some of these miles before. I know what it feels like. And so they know that I know that if what it feels like to sweat payroll, what it's like to fire a trusted employee that just isn't getting it done anymore, to have a challenge on your home life while you're still trying to run the business. I know what that feels like because I've been there. And so I think most leaders want that kind of participatory companion to help them with the performance part of it, but they also want somebody that kind of gets what it's like to be them as a human being.
Hmm. And for a lot of these folks, and I put myself in this, like, when I read a book or take a class for something, it's information in, but don't really do anything with it. I mean, you see all these millions of bestsellers that are like, self-help books. But so if that was the case, wouldn't everyone just be hunky dory, right? Not everyone always applies what they learn. Um, when you meet with clients and you're walking them through this, some of them are probably resistant to change. What are they usually protecting when they're resistant to change?
Some self-talk that tells them about this whole notion of becoming different about something that they're wedded to. And so that is a huge topic. We could spend hours on that, but that's usually what's going on is they're resistant to the very thing they need to know differently because something feels at risk for them to try the thing they know they need to improve at. So, for example, many of my CEOs struggle with difficult conversations with underperforming employees. They know they have to get better at that if they're going to take the friction out of the business. And yet, why do they struggle? Well, many of my CEOs also tell themselves a story about being the need to be likable. And if the need to be likable, as seen in the eyes of others, is higher than your need to get that conversation right, then you're going to be likable every single time. And this is where the challenge occurs. And there's a bunch of these kinds of needs to be that interfere with, and that's the interference I'm talking about. Helping them understand that this need to be likable is getting in the way, man. I understand why it's important to you and why it's worked in the past, but now it's an impediment. It's actually canceling you out.
And how do you, like, shake them of that? Is there I mean, is it like cold turkey where like, "Hey, CEO, just do it once and see what happens?" Is what how do you work through it?
Very seldom is it just do it once, and it's never that easy. I think the respect and dignity of the individual is paramount here because these are human beings that carry these success strategies around for a reason. It worked for them. They're identified with it. It would be sacrilege for me to just simply say nonchalantly, "Stop doing it." They know they're supposed to stop doing it. uh, yeah, and this to me is what I think the value of coaching, but especially peer groups are particularly good at, is that it allows a CEO to work something out across time. It's very Camino-like. This notion of deliberate practice across months. Some of these problems are daunting that required incremental tiny steps with a participatory opinion that's going to hold them accountable in a respectful, dignified way towards the thing that matters most to them.
Hmm. You mentioned peer groups, you've been working with them for decades. What happens in those groups that don't happen in a boardroom?
Oh my gosh. Uh, it's a well-run peer group with the right type of people, and that's my number one job is to put the right people around the table. And so it becomes a kind of a crucible where the peers, 12, 14, 16 of them, hold the space for a member to try something brand new that scares the crap out of them, frankly. And it's that collective wisdom of those peers that had been through the very thing that CEO is trying to work with and getting that feedback and that accountability and that encouragement. Uh, on my best day as a CEO coach, I pale in comparison to the power of a peer group.
What is it about it? Is it just like, is it alchemy? Is it I mean, because obviously you have to be intentional in the way you put the right people in the room, but what is it? What it almost sounds like something ephemeral or something. What is it about it?
I don't think alchemy is too crazy of a word here.
Okay.
I mean, a peer group, I've watched CEOs transform over time because they didn't want to let their peers down. They were willing to take risks because they knew their peers would understand what they're trying to go for and respect the rigor of it. And then they transform. That's what alchemy is transformation over time. And it's really a beautiful thing to watch. And when you have a high performing peer group whose sole purpose is to help each other get the business and themselves as leaders in the business to the next level, magic can happen in these places. It's
Hmm.
hard earned, but it works.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear. Most leaders, they probably say they want growth. They want to grow either personally, their company, what have you. But what do they secretly hope they will not give up? I'll bring this up in the context of like a diet. Like if someone goes to the doctor and the doctor says, hey, you got to lose 10 pounds. And like, okay, cool, I'll go on a diet. But every Friday, I'm still going to eat pizza. What is it some of these leaders don't want to give up secretly, but they're willing to grow, but they're just not willing to not drop the pizza on Friday nights?
Well, I call this the identity hooks, and it's that self-identification with what got them here. So it could be the need to be likable. Some people are highly valued about their personalities and how they can light a room up just by walking in. Some CEOs need to be identified with how smart they are, and to appear not the smartest person in the room feels deadly to them. Some CEOs are really identified with their ability to accomplish stuff, and so they fear that if I'm not seen this way, something fundamentally is wrong with me. And this becomes the biggest impediment to leadership effectiveness and scaling the organization. If you're a leader that's based on high control and your own accomplishments, you won't grow the leadership team. And that's what you have to do. You have to let go of control. You have to delegate. You have to develop the team and insist on a level of performance that you were once able to do. So it's a good question. People, these are their identities, and they become wedded to them when in fact it's just an operating software that needs upgrading.
Hmm. And been so much made about the last few years. I'm sure you've read the books about radical candor and being honest and blah 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 blah. And obviously, there's so much nuance to it. That's why I think people being like, "I want radical candor," is like, do some homework first before you do that, right?
Yeah.
But the one thing I've known from leaders is they love to dish the feedback, right? And they will, depending on the culture, whether it's candor or they'll walk around it, But when it comes to them receiving feedback, the idea of receiving feedback sounds great, but when it actually happens, they don't like it because at the end of the day, they got the corner office, they got the nice window, and so they may say, yes, give me feedback, but they won't actually take it in. So tell me about these leaders that like the idea of it in theory, but not in practice.
Well, that is a common thing that I see is, I have an open door to my office. Just tell me what I want to hear. Uh, and they do that at their own risk. What I find that members that join my peer groups, my Vistage groups, get the value of feedback. That's why they join a peer group. And as difficult as it is to hear that truth, they know it's in their best interest and they embrace it. Now that's a process that they begin to embrace over time. The first couple of times, it's terrifying
Yeah.
for a lot of CEOs to get this kind of unvarnished truth. But when they receive it and they realize it's not deadly, it's given from a place of care and commitment to your growth, they start to embrace it. Now, when that happens, and this is why I think peer groups are so important to growth, they then can model that back into their own companies and be more feedback seeking. And when they do that, they're trusted more. People can make mistakes around them and not feel like it's going to be deadly because the CEO is not going to bite my head off. They understand that it was a well-intentioned mistake. I'll learn from it. That's what feedback's all about. And that the CEO needs to be told how they're getting it right and where they're getting it wrong.
Hmm. One thing that I've learned that when I give honest feedback to leaders, they don't forget it. And like 3 years later, they'll be like, "Hey, remember that thing you told me?" I'm like, "Yeah. Please stop saying that I said it," because there is something I feel like that's very sort of humbling that when a leader takes your advice, but often they'll like remind you that they took their advice, and it makes you feel uncomfortable a little bit.
Feedback is that's mother's milk to growth, man. You got to be willing to do it.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. You mentioned earlier about wabi-sabi and the beauty of imperfection, and I have often joked, Peter, that it took a global pandemic for leaders to learn about empathy. You remember all the be empathetic leader, transparent leader, blah blah blah, and then there was like that moment in time where every leader was like imperfect. I think we've kind of gone back to the pre-COVID levels of dealing with imperfection. Why is imperfection still so threatening in that executive space, even after everything we've been through? And sort of learn that people are embracing the imperfect leader. The idea of imperfection, again, better in theory than in practice.
It's a blind spot that most of my leaders need to deal with over time, and it's this need for perfection interferes with vulnerability, which is a superpower. And vulnerability, as defined by Brene Brown, is simply this willingness to be seen without a filter, warts and all. So when I work with CEOs, and this is always a journey, it takes a few conversations. I help them come to understand that standing in front of the company and saying that you're not entirely sure of this incredible solution we have to get to, but I don't know the way just yet, is not weakness. You're not showing a lack of competence. You're not clear about the future. You're being honest about it, but you're clear that we can get there. And so it's not about being perfect. It's about being real and truthful, and people can smell the difference.
Yeah. And so if someone reads your book, Peter, they finish it, what do you hope, say they want to take one brave step the next day after reading that book. What do you hope that step looks like?
That it's a lifelong journey and it's one step at a time. And if you want to grow and have a good life, get good with that. The joy is in the walking.
That's awesome. And Peter, I always wrap up these conversations taking folks behind the dedication of the book. And yours is short and sweet. To my wife, Elaine, and son, Peter. Tell me why it was so important to dedicate the book to your fam.
Well, they've just been so important to me. And they are my accountability partners. They hold me to the aspiration that they see my future self before I do. And they encourage me to get there, and they insist that I get there, and I love them for it.
Awesome. And I'm curious because I would one day like to do the Camino. What was that talk like with your wife? Like, hey, hon, I'm going to be gone for like a month and a half. How did that talk go? Or give me some advice for when I approach my wife about this.
Oh, I'm married to an amazing woman. She knew I had to do it, and she embraced it. So I didn't get any pushback at all. All I got, and by the way, my members, I took a step back from my 60 plus Vistage members. Every single one of them embraced the journey I had to go on because they knew I needed to do it, and they'd hear all about it when I got back. So I got nothing but support from all the people in my life.
Awesome. And you can read all about it in the Leadership Journeyman, Insights from a CEO Coach on Lifelong Growth, Meaning and Purpose from the Camino de Santiago. Peter, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
This has been fun, Joe. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
And that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to find out more information about Peter and our other amazing authors, go to theauthoritycompany.com.